Hello and welcome to IMAGE The Motherload, the podcast for mums who work inside and outside the home. I'm your host, Dominique McMullan. I'm Image Media's editorial director and mum of 2 boys. Each week, I am joined by a guest to talk about the realities of modern motherhood and hopefully to leave you feeling a little less alone and a little more seen. You can think of us as your new village because we're here, hopefully, to lighten the load. Today I'm joined by Sonya Lennon. Sonya is a woman whose career I've admired for a long time from afar. She has so many strings to her bow. She is an entrepreneur, having co-founded the beautiful fashion and homeware brand Lennon Courtney, now in Kilkenny. She is also a social entrepreneur. She co-founded Lift and she also founded the charity Work Equal. On top of that, she is a speaker and a broadcaster and recently completed a master's in business, equality, diversity and inclusion. And she's also mum to twins. This is going to be a really good one. Let's dive right in. I want to take a moment to thank the brands that make IMAGE The Motherload possible. IMAGE The Motherload is powered by Peugeot and sponsored by Liffey Valley, Evoca, Revive Active and Aptamil Advanced. So welcome, Sonya Lennon.
Thanks for having me. I'm great.
It's nice to have you here. I want to dive straight in because I've got so many questions.
Okay, go.
So your career, which I kind of talk about in the intro, covers so many different areas, from fashion to advocacy to leadership to entrepreneurship. And I'd love to hear from you what you think joins all of those different paths together.
Yeah, I kind of have 2 sort of theories around that. But I suppose before I even get into that, it's funny. I often wonder whether if I had been just focused on one area and just gone at it like an arrow, what the difference would have been. Now, there's no point going back because I didn't do that. And I think given my boredom threshold, I probably would not have stuck at that. Yeah. But I do often think about it. You know, there is that sense that, you know, I've spread myself in a lot of areas. I've done it in a way that works for me. So I'm focusing on what I enjoy doing and where I think I can add value. But at the same time, it is a kind of a spread. But I suppose for me, what draws all that together is a sense of wanting to spread empowerment, agency, voice through either support networks or clothes or self-development or whatever it is. And it is that kind of awareness of the power of people's potential. Kind of slightly obsessed with that. Not in a way that I, you know, go and tell them what they should be doing. But once that kind of curiosity to kind of make the leap is there, I become really interested.
Yeah. And you can see that I can see that thread in everything that you do. And I reckon if you focus on one thing, Sonya, you would be president of Ireland.
Well, we won't get into that right now. I think that's a bit of a quagmire, but
yeah.
And then I suppose the other thing that I've noticed through my career is that when I was a fashion stylist for 20 years, and I was very I suppose, great feelings of self-importance and sort of feeling that I was at a certain level. And when I was asked to do Off the Rails, I genuinely felt that the idea of a makeover was beneath me, that I was, you know, dressing actresses and models and music stars. And, you know, suddenly I was diving into this realm of, you know, the real. And it didn't appeal to me. But actually what happened from that was I saw the power of giving people permission to feel good about themselves and unlocking that potential to change track, I suppose. And so I moved from creating very sort of, if you like, highbrow images for elite publications into kind of democratizing that a little bit through television. And then taking that as a principle and further democratizing it with Work Equal. And then indeed again with Lift to kind of say, well, look, a lot of this is a lot of changes in our control. And I don't think most people think like that. I think we think that, you know, either it's somebody else's fault, or we don't have the power, or we don't have the strength. And, you know, it is hard, but amazing people are out there to give support for that change. And sometimes all we need is permission to believe. And once that kind of gets surfaced, great things can happen.
And isn't it incredible that you had that self-belief to follow that seed, to allow yourself to go from path to path and develop and grow naturally?
Yeah, and I suppose probably the rationale was retrofitted because there was no grand plan, you know, but I can see it now looking in the rearview mirror that there was a methodology, if you like, to it. But it's funny, like I really, really am becoming more and more interested in the social piece, the impact piece, you know. Business, it's necessary, and I love it, and nothing makes me happier than seeing you know, somebody walking down the street in our clothes, or, you know, dressing their home with our homewares or whatever it might be. It's just such an amazing feeling to feel that you've created something that somebody wants to use or show off or wear or whatever. But for me, I think particularly where we are in the world right now, one of the challenges is, you know, the absolute pervasive sense of individualism, and actually the power is in collectivism, and we need to kind of shift the narrative towards that, I think.
Absolutely. The power of, and it's such an overused cliched word, but community, and true community. You know, real coming together of people for reasons.
100%.
Yeah. Talk to me about motherhood and your kind of path. I mean, your kids are 20, am I correct to do my maths?
Correct.
Yeah. Talk to me about how your career and your motherhood have lived alongside each other and how they've influenced each other.
So myself and David were 10 years together before we intentionally decided, right, it's time now to try for a child at the time. And I remember having a conversation saying, you know what, we've made this decision. Like, I'm not, you know, I don't feel hugely broody. I don't feel like, you know, my ovaries are tugging on my heart or anything like that, but let's try. And I remember saying, look, if this doesn't work, it doesn't work. Forget about it. We won't let it define us. We won't, you know, tie ourselves up in knots. Let's just, if it doesn't work, let's move on. And I think looking back, and I really did believe that at the time, because we'd had an amazing 10 years, and, you know, who knows what the right direction laid out for you is, you know. And I do think probably believing in that took all the pressure off a little bit.
Yeah.
And sorry now if my kids do listen to this, but we literally got pregnant first time that we intentionally tried to get pregnant. So that was a bit of a shocker. It was a double shocker when there were two of them in there.
Yeah.
And I think I'm quite a good planner. And I had kind of planned for one place in crash and stuff like that. And when I found out that there was two there, it was kind of everything just went to hell in a handbasket. I thought, how am I going to make this work, you know?
Yeah.
We just did. We put a different primary, secondary and tertiary logistic in place and made it work. And I suppose I was freelance at that stage. So there was a freedom to kind of flex back into my career in a way that worked for us as a family. But as well, I think because I was freelance, I wasn't encumbered by any external culture of how things must be done. And I hadn't really been employed since I was working in retail in my, like, I left retail when I was 21. And so at this stage, I've been working all that time on my own for myself. And so there was no rule book. I think that really helped. And I really think it's much more difficult when you're fitting into a preordained legacy system that has not been designed for mothers or families. And you have to play by rules that don't suit you. So I guess it wasn't really much of a hardship for me. I mean, I do remember going on a month-long shoot for a Board Fulcher campaign when they were 6 months old.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember we had a weather day and I flew back to be with them just to see their faces, and then back onto the shoot and stuff like that. So we had ways of kind of coping, and I think that the the challenge, I suppose, is to kind of understand and be aware of what needs you the most when, rather than trying to create some sort of fundamental, unshakable balance in your life, which is impossible. It's giving yourself the time to say, okay, well, my work really needs me right now for a period of time, the end to which I do not know, or the kids need me now. And having the courage to kind of flex into it. Very hard when you're freelance because, you know, only you can put food on the table. But that came to me eventually, that it was like, just know where the needs are when they come.
Yeah, it's like when you say that, it's like angels singing. I'm like, yes, that's what it is. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and not feeling stuck in any one place, that you can always change and put a bit more, you know, a bit more drive.
It's like a graphic equalizer, right? Yeah. You just have to know what levers to pull.
Yeah, which is hard to kind of tune into yourself to know what levers to pull, and hard if you're in a position in a workplace where you can't pull the lever that you need.
Very hard.
Row back. And I'd love to talk about that a little bit with you, because you've been such a passionate advocate of women in the workplace for 10, 15 years. Do you think that we're making progress, or do you think we've become a little bit stuck?
Well, I think, again, given the political climate and seeing the kind of tendrils of regressive policy hitting Ireland and playing out all over the world, it's very hard, you know. And when you see really good people who are muzzled, who can't speak truth, that's hard.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I'm always talking about the correction. We need the correction to come. It's the moment where the pendulum shifts, right? But actually, you know, if everything toppled down, whatever that might look like, well, what would you do? If it was all razed to the ground, what would you do? Would you build the old system again and inhabit it? Absolutely not. And so just if you take yourself on a little imaginary journey and you think, well, actually, if men didn't create the workplace, if women created the workplace, what would that look like? And actually, it would be a more compassionate, more humanistic approach to how we do the job of work. And actually, look, not to throw a total curveball in, but you add AI into the mix and suddenly that shifts everything again, you know, and what we see as work is changing. And how does that impact how we ultimately live together? So, you know, our workplaces would have childcare facilities at the heart of them, you know, and for the good of everybody. You know, and, you know, if you were to schedule in, you know, 20-minute stress breaks and go and sing a song to a 2-year-old, like, the world would be a better place. Absolutely. It mightn't even be your 2-year-old, you know. But it's like we have created a world where parenting, but particularly mothering, is a sort of a secret shame. You know, it just doesn't fit in with the system, and which is kind of hilarious when the world is suffering a massive population crisis, and if we cannot replenish the populations, we cannot pay for the elder care of the senior leaders who are propagating. Yeah, exactly. You know, so I think we need the correction to have a vision.
Yeah.
You know, a vision that is kind of grounded in human values and wanting to do the right thing. And I also think we need to kind of give permission to the men to be part of that solution.
Absolutely.
Because we've created a world where they're kind of locked out of it. Yeah. It's not okay, or it's not socially acceptable for them to be part of that story, to role model it. And sometimes women want to control what they want to control, to do it their way, and I think we also have to give a little bit of that back, so that we can all kind of make a mess together.
Yeah, and let go a little bit from what we're trying to do, which is a hard thing to do as well when you've been role modeled, watching your mum doing everything, controlling everything, never sitting down. There's so much in what you said. There's so many different areas I want to go into. Can we start with AI? Because I think that's really interesting. I haven't thought about the impact AI will have on women in the workplace and on shifting maybe towards those softer skills. Is that something that you can see happening where...
Yeah, there's that for sure. But there's also what happens, and if you read any of the sort of interesting futurists, and nobody can predict exactly what's going to happen, but if and I am an eternal optimist, right? So I don't doubt that we're going to go through some seriously shaky times with AI, and once again we find ourselves strapped to the back of a runaway horse. We cannot control it. We did it with social media, we did it with the internet, we're now doing it with AI. Even those driving it don't know what they're driving, so that's tricky, right? But if the correction comes and women rule the earth, and we can use AI for good, then that frees us up to exercise our true human purpose.
Yeah.
And so the week spent by a doctor diagnosing an issue suddenly becomes minutes through AI, and actually we can move towards a preventative and intentional society where, a bit like our health, we are no longer strapped to a runaway horse. We get ahead of it and we own it, and we can create systems that allow people to live healthy, happy, fulfilling lives. I was listening to one exponent, futurist, recently saying, if you imagine, there's probably no better method of creating a system that could allow the world to be fully fed, in peace and thriving than AI, if it was used for good. The problem is that's not in place at the moment, but who knows? But one thing is for sure, some of the time that we have spent doing grunt work will cease to be.
Yeah.
So how are we going to spend that time? How are we going to redefine what wealth looks like?
Yeah.
And how are we going to redefine what purpose looks like? Because so many people get to the end of their working lives and they realize that they've left their identity in the office, or who are they when they walk away? So it's interesting times.
Fascinating times ahead. Yeah. I'd love to talk about childcare, which again you touched on there. But Ireland is obviously in the middle of a childcare crisis and has been for as long as I've been a mother, certainly as long as I've been writing about it. And I'm wondering what your thoughts on a solution is. I mean, we've talked about a public childcare model. Obviously, we've increased subsidies, not enough, nowhere near enough. And childcare now isn't accessible. It's basically impossible to find a place for a 1-year-old. What do you think is the right solution there? Obviously, you're not a politician and you're not a policymaker. But
I do think that we make a big mistake of creating the solutions way downstream in this country, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to create responsive solutions instead of going way upstream and seeing, well, where are these problems coming from, So we're in a system that is overburdened with cost, that cannot attract workers. We're in an education system that's producing highly skilled childcare workers who are not incentivized to work in that sector. That's a big problem. I know that government policy is moving towards a free childcare, fully subsidized childcare system. I don't have full clarity on how they're going to get there and when they're going to get there. Very slowly is the answer. But I do feel, going back to the community piece, that there are options for how we perceive and manage childcare needs. And if we flip it away from childcare needs into early education, then it becomes not a burden but an opportunity, right? So I've got a blank package of land on a brownfield site in some sort of urban area, and I build a school which on site has an elder care facility and an early education facility for preschool kids, and maybe student accommodation. So you have 3 generations 4 generations, if you count the service providers, working in harmony to create really blended care for each other, you know, because we need to look at it completely differently. And we need to stop creating a burden on our children and on our elders. Because they are actually an opportunity as we move through the design of our society, and it has to be fundamentally redesigned. And if you think about, you know, a united Ireland, for example, we cannot trundle into that without thinking about what that looks like. I had the absolute privilege of sitting on a council of 50 women chaired by Mary McAleese to create a value-based framework for what a united Ireland would look like.
Wow.
And none of the policymakers are considering those values, the sort of considerations of a post-conflict country, which is what we are, the disproportionate sort of impact of that on people in the north to people in the south. How do we bring those two together when they are, you know, very different colours and shapes and creeds and all of that kind of stuff, and what do we want to be? And that's one thing that I find in policy making is seriously lacking. There doesn't seem to be a vision for what really excellent looks like. And it's nearly that you start with that and you work backwards from there. The other thing I think we really need to tap into is to legislate for the most vulnerable in our society.
Absolutely.
We're constantly legislating for the privileged and the few. Whereas actually, if you take the laws of universal design and you legislate for the most vulnerable, there is what they call, you know, it's called the curb cut effect, right? Okay. So if you take, back in the 1970s, there was a disability activist in a wheelchair on a campus in Colombia or something like that. I can't remember where it was. And there was no ramps, right, in the pavements. And as an act of guerrilla activism, he poured concrete down a pavement in the middle of the night, let it set, and created a ramp. Okay. So suddenly, for the first time in his life as a student on campus, he was able to ramp down that pathway.
Amazing.
And as a result of that, it's called the curb cut now. Who else can utilise that to their benefit? Women with buggies, delivery people, men with buggies, delivery people with trolleys, people with suitcases, people wheeling bicycles. So suddenly the ability for people to benefit from something that seemed to be a benefit to the marginal is exploded.
I love that. What a great story. And that's where the expression comes from.
Yeah, it is. And the other one, well, it's shorter, is that text messaging was originally designed for deaf people to communicate.
Wow.
So once we sort the problems out with the most marginalised, everybody wins.
So I know I joked about president, but I do think
it's a bit late. It's a bit late, Dominique.
Next time.
And my past would not withstand the scrutiny.
Next time. You have my vote next time. I'll run your campaign.
They might have forgotten by then.
That's all so incredible. And I do think often in the conversations I have here that it is about zooming out a bit and looking at the macro problems and thinking about the societal attitudes and norms that we've all just come to accept and not question, that actually those are the things that need to be changed. And that requires a bit of a shake-up. It does, and a rethink and courage, bravery, which doesn't exist in our current government.
I think we should be standing up as a country and saying no.
Yeah.
I really do, because and I know that's easier said than done, and you know, and we've got a big bully over the water, and do we want to hack him off any more than we already have? Well, yeah, actually, you know, and you know, we should be standing up and saying we're a country who believe in inclusion and equity for everybody. Yeah. And it doesn't matter who you are, and you should not be judged or defined by your perceived identity, because we're all the same underneath, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. We're all human beings. I often hear people talk about, you know, the kind of Scandinavian models of X, Y, and Z. And I think, but we could even do better than that.
We so could.
We could even be better.
Yeah, and there's lots of flaws in those models as well, you know? So, but I think we know enough now about what's out there to know what works and how we can kind of develop a plug and play model for ourselves, taking the best of all of the good guys and creating our own system. One of the systems that, for example, fascinates me is the Welsh model, where they, in the last few years, introduced a Future Generations Act, which is, it is basically legislation which creates a sift through which all bills have to pass to see, is this new legislation good for the future of the Wales that we collectively decided we want to be, which is a thriving Wales, a sustainable Wales, a Wales that legislates for the most marginalised, the Wales that is good for future generations, you know, and that then chips away at election cycle politics, and it takes away short-termism and ego-driven decisions, and it becomes about, you know, the bigger picture and what's good for the country. And our politics doesn't work like that at the moment.
No, certainly. It's just the next cycle in mind all the time. Yeah. If we get practical, some of the things, like I'm thinking about workplaces first of all, but if we get practical on things like maternity leave, paternity leave, return to work generally, policies for parents in the workplace, what are some things that you've seen best practices of, and what are some things that really you wish you could see the end of?
So I went on a trip to Iceland with the Oireachtas Committee for Workplace Equity, which we co-founded with Work Equal. And that was a kind of a research mission to find out what were the levers that have made them the most equal country in the world. So we asked trade union officials, we asked women's rights movements, we asked elected ministers, the Prime Minister. We had an audience with the Prime Minister, all very kind of diverse groups. What are the 3 levers that have made Iceland the most equal country in the world? And they've all said the same thing. It was accessible, affordable, sustainable childcare paid by the state. It was legislation for mandatory shared parental leave, and a kite mark for equality on goods and services.
Okay, wow.
So the people vote with their pocket. So they choose their insurance company, their bread, their car, based on how equitable that company is.
Wow.
Makes so much sense, right? So, but for me, the mandatory shared
paternity leave, parental leave
is vital, because I think the real problems begin at the beginning, when you spit out 2 equally qualified graduates and they're sitting in front of a recruiter or HR or whatever, and that HR is saying, he's really interesting, she's really interesting too, but she's probably going to go and have babies soon. And they may not articulate it, and it may not land on a scorecard, but I am telling you that is running through their head. And so how do you throw the pebble upstream to mitigate against that? You make him as likely to go on leave as her, and that creates an equity in the landscape, which I also think that's giving men permission to take up the leave that they probably want to take up but feel they can't take up because it'll impede their careers. We know that, but and I've already had a little bit of pushback on this, it will mean that women can take less time. And so we have to be willing to give up to get. So it's very contentious, it's very raw, but it, you know, all of the research will say if men take part in early childcare, that the child and the man benefit, and you know, society benefits as a whole through that. So that is a key piece of legislation that I'll probably be hung up on a cross and drawn as I, you know, and even the people who work in advocacy in the space are like, ooh, that's a bit much, isn't it? But you know, this is the stuff that we need to be thinking about and talking about now, so that we can kind of socialize these ideas and say that we need permission to change. You know, and actually legislation is the only thing that works.
I had never thought about that before. I'd always be a proponent of shared parental leave, mandatory shared parental leave, but I'd never thought about the fact that you'd have to take a bit less. But it makes sense. And it's only equal if it's equal.
Correct.
Wow. My mind is blown. I'm like, hang on a second. No, really, really interesting. And also what I think is really important about it is that those first few months or that first year is when you start the patterns that continue on. And I think that has a huge knock-on effect on that mental load, on the work and the responsibility that the woman takes on in doing the things at home, the caring, the doing the dishwasher after dinner, the, remembering the birthday of the whatever. You take on that stuff during maternity leave and then you don't drop it because it becomes habit. So if everyone's doing it, then everyone's doing it. Yeah. As a mum, the reality is we spend a lot of time in the car, whether that's juggling work or the kids or somewhere in between. Recently, the other mums and I from IMAGE test drove the Peugeot 3008 and 5008, and we were genuinely so impressed. They're spacious, big enough for car seats, buggies, sports equipment, and everything else you can think of, with really clever storage and innovative tech too. And they're also just really nice to drive. The 3008 SUV is a perfect mix of style and practicality, and the 5008 has all the extra space, including 7 seats if you need them. So whether you've got babies, toddlers or teens, Peugeot has thought of everything, because when life gets busy, you need a car that just gets it, and Peugeot certainly does. What about policies in the workplace generally once those parents have come back to work? What kind of policies do you think actually support working families?
Well, first I'll get up my high horse about flexible working.
Yes, please do. I'm ready.
I mean, come on. Never was there a more unjust discourse around people's rights as employees, because let me tell you something, it is disproportionately women who are taking up 4-day weeks.
Yeah.
So that they can conduct the inequitable life admin and caring duties required of their lives, right? And in so doing, they are, chopping their salary by 20%, incrementally chopping their pension provision.
Yeah.
Probably doing 5 days work squashed into 4 anyway.
Yeah.
And so where's the win in that? There isn't one, and it's the same thing. I kind of feel, I am a massive fan of the reduced working week movement. The founder, whose name I can't remember at the moment, spoke at one of the Work Equal conferences, and he reckons there isn't a sector or a job that cannot benefit from a 4-day work week. And there was lots of questions back about particular roles, but I think it's how we design the week, and we need time. We need time to recover as humans. And I think the way that the work is structured, even, it doesn't take into account our human seasonality and our need to ebb and flow and to go hard and to go soft throughout the year. It's like a continuum. It's based on how a computer works, that it's just constant. And that's why we're all exhausted, overwrought, whatever, strung out. And look, that's influx as well. That needs addressing. And if you want to go back to AI, that's part of that as well. But I think, that kind of pure capitalist structure doesn't legislate for the human in the middle of it.
No. Have you read Catherine May's book, Wintering?
I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
I read it always around this time of year, and it's such a beautiful book that talks about that, about aligning with the seasons and about, cozying up during the winter especially.
Yeah, and I think that's
down.
One of the things about getting a little bit older that's really gorgeous is that, as the oxytocin drops, the clarity rises, and you kind of have a real sense of, no, I don't want to do that. And no, the concept of duty becomes kind of odious, and you get this kind of pureness of what works for you, and you're kind of magnetized towards it in a way that is so powerful. And you would think that the menopause didn't exist up until 3 years ago or 4 years ago. I met actually Anne Connolly, who was the founder of the Well Woman Centre, yesterday for coffee.
Amazing.
And she had set up a menopause centre in 1978 in the Well Woman Centre, and she was pilloried. She was hung, drawn and quartered for what she did. And she was denied. She was told she couldn't have any doctors, and doctors weren't to come to work in the Well Woman Centre if they ever wanted to work in the medical sector again. And it has ever been thus. But I think the point is that we are now, yes, absolutely talking about the 475 million symptoms of menopause. And we're talking about the problems of menopause. What we're not talking about is the great opportunity of it.
Yeah.
And I think if we can regulate ourselves, either through HRT or whatever it might be, or by finding the things that can make us happy, we're titans. Like, we're absolute Amazonians. We're like, don't mess with a menopausal woman. Like, as I saw something on social media the other day which said, what doesn't kill me better run fast. It's a bit like that, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And you can feel it. I mean, isn't it? There's mythology about it and stuff about women at a certain age and the strength and the clarity of mind.
That's why they're afraid of us.
And well, they should be.
Yeah, well, they should be.
Amazing. If we just, flexible working, I just want to go back to for 1 second, because I think it's really important. And I think, you know, there's the 4-day working week, which is definitely a huge part of it, but also just that flexibility of hybrid working, of being at home, which impacts women hugely, but also, you know, people who are differently abled, people who are carers, so many different sections of society. And yet there is this push back into offices happening by mostly men who are mostly, you know, in high up positions with big empty offices, and that's primarily why they want to push them back in. And maybe they have trust issues.
I think it's a little bit of that. I think it definitely, you know, there has been a massive retrenchment out of big glass palaces, and there have been notable companies who are pulling people back into the workplace, and I'm really nervous about that for all the reasons that I've just said. But I also understand the need to be part of something physical.
Yeah.
So it's to find the balance again, and it's back to this pendular swing that we got it way wrong, and now we get it way wrong the other direction. And what does good look like? Yeah. And if the problem that you're solving is the problem of filling an office, that's not the right problem to solve.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So what is the real issue here? And actually, is it better to offer a new way of working across the board and to legislate for that new way of working so that there is equity around it within the employee body? Because you find yourselves creating inequitable systems very easily. Sure. If one group are doing one thing and one group are doing another.
Sure, of course. And it's definitely important from the community aspect as well to have spaces where people can come together with colleagues. But I find it so frustrating when there is a feeling, and a lot of my female friends are being pushed back in, and that's not, you know, that will end up in them leaving that workspace.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about leadership, women in leadership. I mean, Lift is the most incredible charity looking after and encouraging leadership across both.
We're a social enterprise. We're not actually a registered charity, just to
apologies.
say. No,
social
not
enterprise.
to apologise, but just we are not a registered charity, so we can't call ourselves a registered charity.
Social enterprise. But it's an amazing way of encouraging leadership and showing the importance of good leadership. And I'd love to hear you talk about women in leadership and why we still don't see enough women in leadership positions.
Yeah, I suppose Lift is a program or an initiative or a movement for people to own their own leadership. And that's where we've seen really big wins, because I think people still think about leadership as positional, the CEO, the Taoiseach, the, you know, whoever. Whereas actually, if we exert influence on the people around us, for good or for bad, we're leading.
Yeah.
Leadership is only influence, you know, so you lead around the kitchen table just as much as you lead around the boardroom table. And so we went out to the Irish public and we said, what are the characteristics of leadership that need to be improved in Ireland to improve trust overall? And the Irish people came back with things like trust, respect, honesty and integrity, competence, accountability, listening, like really fundamental stuff that doesn't get particularly taught anywhere in our world at the moment. And by taught, it means, well, what does that actually mean? You know, respect is an inside game and an outside game, and until you respect yourself and your own boundaries and your own parameters, it's very hard to respect others.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so it's that sense of it's building in that sense of agency and control first into the individual, and where we've seen 140,000 people plus have been through the program, and those people have been in private industry, government departments, secondary schools, universities, now kind of trickling into primary schools.
Wow.
What we've seen actually is a massive impact on an understanding of what leadership is. So 98% of people who go through the process, I understand what leadership is now and how it's actually an inside game. And 86% have seen positive behaviour change through the program is based in the science of behaviour change. So it's very, very deliberate 5-point program that you do on a weekly basis. It's super simple. It's disarmingly simple. But I think what leadership, and you spoke about representation, really, women in leadership. You know, we've seen a bit of a retrenchment in politics, you know, serious underrepresentation in our legislative institute. And that has a huge impact, you know, because people can only legislate for what they understand. And without that perspective there, it's reflected in how we build the policies that govern our country, you know. And I don't blame women for not going forward. I mean, I thought about it for a hot minute, but I don't want to work that hard. And that's the honest truth. Yeah.
And it's alarmingly vulnerable. I feel like the position that politicians are put in now.
It's crazy, just the abuse.
Yeah.
And so that, like, then again, if you're gonna go back to the analogy of throwing the pebble up the stream, what's the problem here? The problem here is how we as a society are kind of okay with taking people down. We're kind of okay with just being, you know, not good humans to other humans.
Yeah.
Like, so what's that about?
Yeah.
And when did we say that was okay? And having, you know, international leaders acting with impunity and evilness and no consequences.
No.
And what worries me then is, what is that teaching our younger people about how to lead themselves and others? So yeah, I don't know. And that's why back to this idea that we have an opportunity as a small island to really define what the social contract is as a country, and to go out and ask everybody, do a bit of a sort of a national citizens' assembly on this, and say, well, what do we stand for? Who are we and who do we want to be for us and for the next generation? And what does that look like in lived experience day to day?
Yeah.
And guess what? Maybe you're not at the center of the universe. Maybe it's not about you after all. Do you know what I mean? Because it is, there's real power in that if we can get, and it's happening in pockets, you know. Like I live on a beautiful street in the center of the city, northeast inner city, and we have created this small community on the street. We do annual street parties, we do planting, we plant the back of the cul-de-sac, we plant the mouth of the street, and now we're just about to embark on a big project to reclaim the back lanes.
Gorgeous.
But it is multi-generational, people from all over the place, great stories, great diversity, lots of people that don't agree with each other politically. It doesn't matter. We've forgotten how to disagree. So learning again how to accept a different perspective, and for that to be okay, because the person's still sitting in front of you, you know, eating a piece of pizza. That's okay. Yeah,
it's when they're sitting in front of you, isn't it, that it changes completely the relationship with the human being. Yeah. I also think it's that idea of acting locally, you know, that doing the small things you can within your community. If everyone was doing that, the world would be a much better place. And that's really
what Lift is doing in terms of creating, you know, small ripples all over the place, and getting those ripples to join up. And I think that's it. There's a great sense of hopelessness out there for a lot of people. You know, they feel this is just, it's so bad out there. There's nothing we can do. But actually, how far do your ripples go? It doesn't matter if it's only 2 ripples deep. It doesn't matter if it's across your county or your province or whatever it is. Just do what you can. Get the ripples to join up.
Yeah.
And link arms. And I remember that fabulous woman who founded Green and Blacks. I heard her speak at a Kella conference recently. She was amazing. And I went up to her afterwards and I said, what can we do? And she said, just the best you can where you are. You know, and there's something in that, you know?
Yeah.
That's all we can do.
It's very powerful. Talk to me about Work Equal. That's the other charity that you founded, not charity.
That is a charity. That is a charity. Okay. That is a registered charity. Yeah. So we offer free services to our clients, always free. And that is styling, clothing, HR guidance, career guidance, to help women and some men to get sustainable jobs. So, and to build towards economic independence. And it has grown over the 13 years of its existence. And now we are doing regional roadshows. So we've been to Cork numerous times, been to Galway, we've been to Kilkenny, we're going to Waterford, Athlone. And we have amazing sponsors on board who help us to do that. And that means getting out into the regions with the circus, basically, and inviting people who just need that catalyst and that permission to change direction. And quite often it's simple stuff that can make a real difference, and that kind of belief, you know. And if people become Work Equal clients, they are clients for life. They can tap into their mentor, and the mentors are all really carefully selected for each individual. And I mean, look, it's amazing, the work that the team do. I mean, I'm not operational at all. I sit on the board and I do what I can to amplify the work that they're doing. But just incredible. And it's the impact on the women.
Yeah, life-changing.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things you campaign around is the gender pay gap.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me? Because I think there's a lot of confusion still, which drives me mad about the gender pay gap.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are still confused about equal pay for equal work and the gender pay gap. So equal pay for equal work is a man and a woman doing the same job at the same level in the same company and getting paid a different rate. Okay? That's been illegal since about 1974. It doesn't mean it doesn't still happen, right? It does still happen. But the gender pay gap is, if you zoom out and look at an organisation in its triangular form, and you look at the 3 tiers from the kind of the bottom of the triangle, the middle and the top, and then you split it by gender, what is the division of pay, man to woman, across that organisation? And in a lot of organisations, they could be heavy in women on the bottom. Most organisations are overly heavy on men at the top, and then that skews the balance and creates the gender pay gap.
Yeah. Now,
I would have campaigned very loudly for gender pay gap legislation from the first second that Ivana Bacik first brought the bill. And now we find ourselves in a situation this year, the first time companies with 50 employees or more are going to have to report. Now, actually, that creates another problem, right? Because the smaller your company, the harder it is to create a statistical spread.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of companies out there are going to really struggle with the results. And even the bigger companies have really struggled with publishing their gap, because they all have gaps, some higher than others. But I think we're ripe for change. So I've been working on a project to create a score for action, rather than giving people a score for the bold number of where they are. What are they doing to address it? Because what matters is not where you are, but what you're doing to move the dial. So that changes the discourse from compliance and stick to a carrot, and moves us perhaps closer to the kite mark for equitable practice on goods and services.
Yeah.
And so we and allows companies who are doing the right things to share their methodologies, to share their policies and procedures, and say, we were over here, it was really bad, we've done X, Y, and Z, and it's got us to here. You know, so I think there needs to be a kind of an open source piece to that where other companies can learn how to improve, because it's not about where you are, it's where you plan to get there, where you plan to get to, and what you're doing to get there.
That was literally my next question.
I must have read the briefing, Doc.
Yeah, I mean, that in itself is so great to hear, because it's only been a few years since the legislation came in, so to be moving so quickly down the path is incredible. I'd love to also talk about entrepreneurship, which is another really big area for you. Obviously, you are an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I am, but I don't think, like, it's funny. So the way that we have, you know, I have built 2 companies as an entrepreneur, and then Social Entrepreneur Lift and Work Equal. And I suppose Frock Advisor was, you know, a magnificent failure. That's fine. That happens. Len and Courtney, we've always built it in a way that we've kind of, well, we built it first as an independent fashion label, and then we went into Dunn's, where it was a licensed model. So I think entrepreneur is I often wonder if it's the right word. I mean, it is, but it's a different way to cut it. Do you know what I mean? So I don't see myself as a scaling entrepreneur.
Okay.
And I think that's maybe it's overly nuanced for the audience. Maybe it's not.
No, I don't think so.
I think it's a differentiation worth making.
Yeah.
So if, for example, I came up with a new business idea today or yesterday, for example, and I wanted that to become a scaled business, I truly believe I'm not the person to make that happen.
Okay.
So I'm the ideator.
Yeah.
And I can definitely make things happen, you know? So I'm just cautious about that. It's and maybe that's my own baggage with it, you know?
No, I can understand the difference though. Yeah. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs, would identify with that area of being that ideas person and that person who makes things happen.
Yeah.
And you're a huge supporter of women in business.
Yeah.
You know, throughout, like literally on the ground supporting women who are starting their own businesses. What kind of one piece of advice do you think is the best piece of advice to give a woman in particular who is starting a business or who is in those early stages?
I think that there is a really tricky valley that you go through when you first of all, you have an idea and it won't leave you alone. And you think, oh, you know, if I never do this, is it going to be my deathbed regret? And you pull all your muster together and you do it and you start the ball rolling. And then what you find is that you are the CEO, you are the HR, you are HR to one mostly at the beginning. You know, you're the bookkeeper, you're everything. You're everything. And you're like a one-man band and you're juggling everything. But the money's so tight and you can't let anything go because you can't pay for anybody else to do it. And I would say, first of all, stand back from it and be really clear what it is that you would like to achieve. So do you want this to be bigger? Do you want it to be an international company? What do you want it to do? For you? What do you want your life to be based on what you want this business to do? And if you really believe in it and you think you can go big, you kind of need to make the investment early to free yourself up to do the stuff that only you can do. Yeah. And whether that means taking on a virtual assistant part-time or taking on a bookkeeper or whatever the stuff is that is low value to you and hard for you to do, you need to shift that as quick as you can to free yourself up to do the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, especially I'm thinking of a lot of mothers who are doing those jobs, who are starting companies. So many mothers seem to do it when they have small kids. You need to prioritize your time. Really? You need to know what you're doing and do the things that you are good at and where you're getting the most value.
And I think accountability, and I always say, you know, who are the 2 people who you can surround yourself with, who check in every month. What are the 3 things that can move the dial this month?
Yeah.
and check back in every month. Did you do them? It's very hard to lie to those people, particularly if they're also trying to start businesses. And you can lie to yourself, no problem. Give yourself a million excuses for why things didn't happen.
Yeah.
But if you have a little accountability group, there's really nowhere to hide.
Other women in business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or men in business. It doesn't have to be gendered. Like, it can be just other people who are trying to do it.
Yeah.
And then create a hive mind with that little group so that you can share your skills with each other as well.
Yeah, so valuable. Style. You're sitting here in front of me. You had the most beautiful blue bag and blue boots that you came in with. Style is such an important part of Sonya Lennon, of your personality, of your business. Tell me what it gives you, what you get from it.
So if I go back to the very beginning, my mum was cabin crew with Aer Lingus. And when I was about 10, in the height of the original Fame, TV show Fame, my mother brought me back the first pair of leg warmers that I'd ever seen in the flesh. Okay?
Gorgeous.
I was like the coolest kid on the block, had these leg warmers. Everybody was kind of coming up to touch them. We'd only seen them on the TV in Juilliard School of Music, you know. And I remember the kind of fabulous contagion of that. That I felt great in the leg warmers. My friends felt great that I had the leg warmers, and it's such a stupid thing, but I dress for my own amusement most of the time. I don't have any deficit of confidence, so I don't really care what anybody thinks, and I just do it for my own amusement. But I see the kind of contagion of it.
Yeah.
And I suppose I have kind of signature, style motifs, my glasses, my hair, lipstick, whatever it might be, so that people, I kind of am like a bit of a walking avatar. People recognize me because of that. But there's also that kind of moment, one of my favorite moments, when you pass somebody who also joy dresses, and they kind of give you a little nod and a smile, and you give them a little nod and a smile back, and they know that you're dressing for your own amusement. You know they're dressing for their own amusement, and it's just lovely, And it doesn't mean that it's not about looking amazing. It's actually about feeling good.
Yeah. I know those nods.
Yeah, you look great.
I had a shirt on the other week that had this big poofy sleeve, and had that moment. A woman passed me on the street. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Yeah, it's a good feeling. It's spreading joy.
It is spreading joy.
Yeah,
definitely.
And another thing you get a lot of joy out is you're working out. You're amazing for your fitness and you're lifting weights. I see you and I'm like, oh, I've got to go and lift some weights.
Yeah, I mean, it's been it's been really incremental, my relationship with fitness, and it's still building actually. And I just again I love it. I definitely get the endorphins from it. But I do feel a responsibility to myself to do what I can to mind my body. My mum has very progressed dementia. She's been in a home for 5 years. I know it's absolutely shit.
Yeah.
But, and my dad is amazing. My dad is completely vital. He's 87. He went to Japan on his own this year.
Wow.
So I can see both sides, and sometimes it's out of our control. Sometimes stuff just happens, and some of the healthiest people that I know have got really ill, and that's completely shit. So this is not a guarantee, but it's the best insurance policy that we have.
Yeah. So you haven't always been into fitness, into working out?
No. I mean, I when I met one of my closest friends, probably 25 years ago, she taught me that you could walk not to get from A to B, but to enjoy yourself. And I'd never walked except to move from one place to another before. And I was like, oh, so you just walk? And she's like, yeah, no, we go for a walk. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So then I was like, okay. And then the walks turned into hikes, and the hikes turned into yoga, turned into Pilates, and then, and so now I just want to feel strong.
Yeah.
I don't particularly care about, I've always had a pretty healthy relationship with my body, and food and stuff like that. I just want to be strong. That's all.
I know that feeling.
Yeah,
of wanting to be able to, just even the feeling of lifting something heavy is an amazing feeling.
I had a very funny incident at an event recently where I was at a very fancy lunch, and the chairs were those little kind of quite spindly, quite delicate event chairs, you know, and I had a bag on the back of the chair that was quite heavy. And I was sitting on the chair when I put the bag on it. And then I got up to cheers somebody and the bag fell. The bag tipped the chair over. But the chair hadn't hit the deck when I went to sit down on it. Me and the chair were falling at exactly the same time. And I went down on my arse. But I literally sprung back up. Like I literally went sprung back up again because of doing the weights and because of being strong, right? And somebody was telling me that as I was falling back and I was chinking a glass of champagne, as I was falling back, the glass came with me, but the champagne stayed in a column in the air. And he said, the woman beside me was only coming in short and like coming in to take the glass as it was, and the champagne as it was falling. But it was just funny. It was funny. It was
did you save the champagne?
I'm sure I did, Dominique.
Good woman.
Yeah, and it's moments like that where you realise, oh, this stuff really matters.
Yeah. Incredible. It's a great visual.
Possible overshare there, but there you
go. No. This is a podcast about motherhood. I mean, it's a lot about a lot of other issues around motherhood, and everything links into motherhood when you're a mother. But talk to me we're near the end now, and I want to finish by thinking about your twins and thinking about the mum that you've been to them and what you've shown to them in the way you live your life. How do you think they describe you even?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. I don't know, because they're two very different individuals, you know, and they probably experienced
different yous.
My motherhood differently as well, no doubt. I hope I've been open and honest with them about the struggles of the entrepreneurial journey, about the highs and lows.
Yeah.
And I hope that I've trusted them enough to understand that, you know, this moves and it passes and something new comes along.
Yeah.
And I hope that I've trusted them. And I think that is something that we have to work very hard at in a world that is telling us constantly not to trust our children.
Yeah.
And to protect them and cosset them as much as we can, where actually what they need is a bit of space.
Yeah.
The embodiment of that story was when they were, I think they were only about 6 or something like that. And where we live, at the end of my road and turn right, I'm on the right-hand side of the road, end of my road and turn right, maybe 40 paces away, it was their primary school. Okay. And I was collecting them from school one day and the headmistress said, you know, they don't have to cross any roads. Like, they're literally a minute and a half from, if they dawdle, a minute and a half from the school. Why don't you let them come on their own?
Oh God, I have a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
The thought of having him walk.
I said, do you think? And she said, well, I do actually, yeah.
Wow.
And I said, okay. Because nobody had given me permission to let that happen. So I started to let them go. And she came back to me a few weeks later and she said, they've grown a foot. Like, they've literally, they're so delighted with themselves that they're getting themselves to school, you know? And it was a real lesson actually for me, that just trusting them.
And that must be hard as they get older as well. I mean, hard at 6, but hard at 20.
I'm very busy. I don't have time. Yes. Why do you think I taught them that I trusted them early on, Dominique? So that they could just go do it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Okay, well, Kai, you're going to be walking to school.
Yay! One less thing for mom to do.
That is brilliant. Sonya, I think that is the perfect place for us to leave it. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thanks,
and I'm going to say to you after who's here, what can I do? That's what I want to say to you. What can I do? And what can we all do?
Yeah.
So we'll have that chat.
No problem.
Thank you so much, Sonya Lennon. If you enjoyed this episode, please do tell all your friends about us. It helps us to reach new people. Also keep an eye on image.ie. There's lots of information there, lots of insights, lots of experts, and all the information about any upcoming Motherload events we have too. Thank you, as always, to all of the incredible brands that make the Motherload possible, and thank you to you for listening. Chat soon.